Hi there, and welcome back to the System of Care Advisory Council Advocacy Training Part 3. This is our third part in our series on advocacy for families. We're glad you're here. So in this particular module, we're going to be talking about telling your story. But first, let's take a minute to review what we learned in modules 1 and 2. So in module 1, we learned how an idea becomes a law. Remember, we start with an idea. It goes through both the House and the Senate committees, and those are places where you can advocate for change in Oregon. You can submit testimony, you can show up at the Capitol, you can write testimony. These are all places where legislators want to hear your voice. Once again, those laws, those prospective bills have to pass both the House and the Senate. Go back to module 1 if you want to review how this process happens. But let's look at what we talked about in module 2. So remember, in module 2, we talked about how to engage with your legislators. We gave you several examples of emailing them or scheduling a meeting, talking to them on the phone or on the computer, or even going into their office, whether it's a local office or coming and talk to them in their office when they are in session during Salem, in Salem. So remember, how do you find your legislator? Oh yeah, you're gonna Google "Find My Legislator," and that will take you to a site called OLIS, or the Oregon Legislative Information System, and you can find your legislator right there. Remember, OLIS is also the place where you find committees. You can track a bill if you happen to know the bill number. This is where you go to register to testify. And again, we covered all of this in module 2. So if you didn't hear our training in module 2, go back a module and watch that one again, and we can help you walk through how to contact your legislators. But today, we're talking about telling your story and why stories matter. So personal stories, they really bring data and policies to life. Time and time again, legislators say that stories are what really put flesh and bones onto the policies. They're what help us really tell the impact of these investments or these policies that legislators are making. They help legislators really connect to the issue at hand. So we're going to talk today about a 3-step process, and I hope you have something to write with and something to write on, because we want you to practice writing your story. So let's go through our 3-step process. Again, in this process of crafting your story, you want to introduce yourself, tell them where you are from, and then you're going to identify the problem. What is the problem that you want to address? And then you're going to write, I don't know, 3 or 4 sentences on giving a really personal connection. So for example, let's say the problem is that that my family is over income just barely for all of the preschool programs in my community. But I really want my 3-year-old to be able to attend preschool. And the personal connection might be, without a preschool program, I can't, my child won't be ready for kindergarten and will be behind their peers when they start. And that my family can't afford preschool on top of all of the other rising costs and expenses. And the last thing, we want to give legislators a solution. So again, in this sample, let's say that there's House Bill 1000 that is a bill, it's a pretend bill, but let's say that you want your legislator to vote for an approval of House Bill 1000. So you're going to finish your testimony by saying, this is what I want you to do. You might want them just to hear your opinion, or maybe you want them to talk with their fellow legislators. There are a variety of actions that can be taken. So right now, I want you to pause this video. I want you to take out a piece of paper and a pen and then get ready to write your story. Let's look at this particular example. So we've written the problem. And let me read this for us. I have been struggling to access mental health services for my child due to long wait times. Every time we try to get help, we're told there's a months long backlog. So I've identified the problem. The problem is that there's a backlog. Now I'm going to write, what is my personal connection? So then I write, because my child isn't receiving the care they need, they are unable to get a job and and if they aren't able to get a job, they will remain dependent on me for support. As a result, I am unable to work, which puts a financial stress on our family. So I've made it personal. I've taken the problem, I've given it a personal connection. Next, I'm going to finish with what is the solution that I'm asking them to do. This, again, you might call this a call to action. So I am asking the legislature to invest in better mental health supports, including expanding services and reducing wait times, so that families like mine can get the help they need without unnecessary delays. Okay, so I want you to pause right now and take a few minutes to write out your testimony using this three-step process. Okay, did you do it? Did you pause and write out your story? I hope you did that. And if you hadn't, take some time to do that today. Here's some storytelling tips. Again, you want to keep your story within 2 to 3 minutes. Sometimes when you're providing testimony, they will limit you to 2 minutes and they might cut you off. So practice, write it out and practice telling it. You're going to record yourself telling your story to make sure that you can do it within 2 to 3 minutes. I would also practice saying it several times because even though you may have it written, and you might be nervous, it's really helpful if you can tell the story and be able to share from your heart and share emotionally. So speak authentically. And then you're going to tie that story back to that policy, back to policy or in the legislature. So remember, let's say there, someone on the committee also has a child with disabilities. And like in our example, you might say, like you, Rep. Brown, you have a family member that experiences disabilities, or maybe you've worked with families that have disabilities. You know how hard it can be. So really try to make it personal. And then again, the last thing I want you to do is to, even if you've given public testimony, send them an email, write your story down or submit written testimony so that when they're making decisions later on, they'll remember what was it that that family member said, and they will have it. Okay. Practice, practice, practice telling your story. Find someone that you can practice with, or maybe contact someone at SOCAC who might be willing to practice with you. Again, remember, you're going to tell the problem, give it a personal connection, and connect it to a solution. All right. Thank you for joining us in Module 3 of our three-part series. Again, we hope that you will advocate for what your family needs. Legislators need to know your opinion, and they need to know what it is that you want changed. Thanks so much for joining us today.